Good morning, good morning, good morning. You already know what time it is. This is your boy, the historian. Hey, man, we got a little bumper to bumper for you this morning, combine style. Let's go. Birdcage. Good morning, good people. Good morning. Get your day started. Get your engines revved up. It's a little chilly out this morning, but hey, it's always a good day when you can wake up on the right side of the dirt, man, and have an opportunity. Just like the young men this weekend that were at the NFL Combine. So when you sit back and you look at it, man, you take advantage of every opportunity that you have. And this weekend was a prime example of that because there are a lot of guys who honestly might have not had as many eyes on them in college due to however their team performed. But the NFL scouts and GMs definitely had an eye for that, and that is why you saw as many invites as you saw this year. So let's get into it. So when you look at the 40s, the weights, the drills that come through, it's really just seeing what guys can do. But honestly, in all fairness, the best way to evaluate a lot of these young men is through what they've done in their game film. And when you sit back and you look at what they've done in their game film, you got guys that are impact players, you got guys that are gamers, you have guys that that shine everywhere that they go. But again, it's all about having an opportunity. When you look at the guys such as Rashad Tootin, hopefully I didn't mispronunciate his name this morning. The young man started off at North Carolina A&T, ends up at Virginia Tech, runs a 4.3 in his 40 consistently, ran it twice. And you're talking about a running back that's a little over 215, 220-ish around that weight, and definitely can scoot if he has the opportunity. You look at the offensive lineman. I've seen big men move, but when you see a large amount of these guys moving, that shows that the athleticism of these young men are definitely coming around. Now, one of the guys that I particularly think would fit what the Falcons do defensively, and definitely is a Jeff Ulbrich type of guy, is Landon Jackson out of Arkansas. Top SEC linebacker in the country. Definitely was one of those guys that is an impact player, can run from sideline to sideline, can make things happen, and definitely can take over a game when he needs to. He's shown that in the Alabama game. He's shown that in many other games. Another guy that you would look at for our linebacking core, and I'm just using a couple of linebackers at this point that could help this team. I would have to honestly say the other guy will be Danny Stutzman out of Oklahoma, middle linebacker. Danny Stutzman is a guy who is a bit of a throwback when you talk about going downhill, definitely getting behind his pads when he's laying some lumber on these running backs or these tight ends or guys coming across his area. The other thing that he does well is cover the pass. When you look at it, it was really a good transition, and he showed that he could play in the SEC. Was in the Big 12 for the longest, but when you look back at his days in the SEC, which is short, 1 year, he definitely was a dominant player. So he's a guy that I would definitely consider when you look at the linebacker. Jack Sawyer is another one. That is another guy that you got to look at. He had a solid combine as well. Now, another guy that I would consider definitely a guy that you take a chance on is probably either Jared Wilson or Seth McLaughlin. And the reason I say this, and I'm going around the horn or whatnot, just talking about some guys who had some good combines and guys that are solid. Right now, we don't know if we're going to keep Drew Dalman. The talks are, yes, we're going to keep him, but when there's smoke, there's fire. Drew Dalman is a guy that's going to be looking to get paid. And definitely, you don't want to lose him, but you also want to look at the fact that, hey, it depends on how much it costs. Are you willing to start over? Are you willing to use Ryan Neusel at that center position? Or are you willing to go get a young guy that's not going to cost you that much that can grow up with Michael Penix Jr.? And to me, I feel like Jared Wilson and Seth McLaughlin are the two best centers right now that I've seen. There are more out there, but when we talk about guys that can literally get it done, those guys have played in championship games. Those guys have played in tough games and big moments, and those guys have shined. So when you look at it, there are many options and many directions that you could go when it comes to that center position, because that is going to be key when you talk about being able to have the offense to move, because you've got to have not just a competent center, you've got to have a center that not only is smart, he's got to be physical, he's got to be tough, and he's got to be growing pains are going to happen. However, this is a defensive loaded draft. Atlanta at this point, they're not talking to any offensive players at all. If you talk to an offensive player, it's got to be an offensive lineman. I'm sorry. At this point, it's got to be, because we need a right tackle. However, we need another safety, because we don't know if Justin Simmons is going to be signed. Yes, he had great numbers. Yes, he had a solid season considering the situation. Might have not looked great to Falcon fans, which I understand, folks. But when you look at what he provided and brought to the table, there were things that he did on the paper. I'm sorry, there were things that he did that didn't show up on paper as they show up on film. If you can do your breakdown and your film study or whatnot, he definitely made a lot of things easier for Jesse Bates in the back, minus the Minnesota game. Everybody looked horrible in that game. But when you sit back and you think about it and you look at it, I really believe you've got to go D tackle in that first round. I know that sounds crazy to everybody, but you got to go D tackle. You know, Walter Nolan is one of the big fish out here, and so is JJ Pegues. I caught a lot of hell for talking about JJ Pegues in another chat when we talk about NFL drafting from some football fans that are out here. But hey, you know what? It is what it is. Everybody has their opinions, everybody has their players. However, I can honestly sit back and say that I think player evaluation is something that you really got to take into consideration. You have to look at Walter Nolan is a Jalen Carter type player, but then you got to look at JJ Pegues. He's another guy that can get it done as well. Now, outside of those guys, you have the kid Robinson at Nebraska. And then here's another guy that I talked about this week. You talk about Zeke Biggers right out of Georgia Tech, 6'6", 320 pounds, who can definitely play that zero technique if you can't get any of these big time guys. But the guy that I'm truly interested in at this point, because Richie Grant's ass got to go. And at this point, if you're going to replace Justin Simmons, let's go cheap. Nick Emanari out of South Carolina. Not just the 4.3. You got to go back and look at his footage. Any SEC fan knows who he is. But if you saw the combine, you got to see the athleticism. You got to see the size. When he comes downhill, he comes to get it. Bring your lunch pail and your hard hat. He's also a ball hawk. Definitely a smart player. And honestly, he would help Jesse Bates out tremendously. And what you could also do if you had a guy like him, you put him at the top. You let Malachi, you pretty much let, excuse me, I was about to say Malachi Starks. That's another one who I'm gonna touch on in a second. But you've got to let Atlanta drop their other safety down into the box or whatnot. When you talk about DeMarco Hellams, Hellams is a guy who can cover and play. But guess what? Where we've been getting gashed at, where we've been getting beat at, and you look at it, we've been getting beat within the short zone across the middle. And that part of the field has been getting gobbled up like Thanksgiving Day fried turkey. Just saying. But at the same time, you have to look at that DeMarco can also play the slot. So if you have a guy like that back there that can run from sideline to sideline, you're taking away one half of the field with that guy, as well as having another half of the field with Jesse Bates taken away. It makes it easier on AJ Terrell and whoever's going to be that number 2 corner, because you have to be aware of that type of size and speed lurking in the secondary. And you're talking about a guy that can, like I said, come down. He can cover tight ends. He can cover running backs. He can cover receivers. He can do it all. Now, another guy didn't have the greatest 40 time, but when you look at his drills, you look at how he's a ball player. You look at the football IQ on the young man. That's Malachi Starks out of the University of Georgia. He's a guy that could come down and make some things happen. The man started as a true freshman at Georgia and helped win a national championship in 2022. But he's been a starter since day one. When you talk about football IQ and, excuse me, I actually accidentally dropped that. And you look at the fact that the reason he got on the field as a freshman, he talked about it in his press conference. He went up against what we call a unicorn tight end, ladies and gentlemen, a tight end that actually has skill set that's worth a damn, Mr. Brock Bowers. So you take that however you want to see it. He was one of the best in the country during the time he was at University of Georgia. But he went up against him every day as a true freshman, and he stole reps. He was originally not supposed to start, but when you can shut down a guy like that and you can definitely do some things as a technician, he's going to get playing time. And all he did was grow and matriculate in his game, and all he did was get better. Now, when you look at this, the secondary at first was a strong part of the Falcons' defense. Really, it was our offense at one point too, because they were helping us score points and generate turnovers. So when you look at it now, you've got to be able to have a strong secondary in this game. Linebacking core and D-line. Yes, I'm focusing on the defense because guess what? That's all the Falcons are talking about. No offensive players at this point, just really defense. And there are so many more players that are out here that are diamonds in the rough. Now, if you don't draft any safeties and you decide to go D-line, linebackers, and get a corner, here's the other thing. I'm going to continue to keep saying his name. Kenny Gallup out of Howard University. Kenny Gallup won the Aeneas Williams Award, which is pretty much the Black College Football Thorpe Award. So that tells you how great he is. Shout out to Aeneas Williams of the Southern University, Hall of Famer, and one of the best lockdown corners that ever played this game that doesn't get enough credit. So looking back at it, Kenny Gallup is a guy that can come downhill, he can cover, and he's fundamentally sound. I actually showed him last Thursday on the Birdcage LLC with the crew, and we broke that down. And when you talk about a guy coming in, you're talking about 6 feet tall, and he's 215 pounds. So he's not a little guy. You would have some size back there. At this point, we've got to start getting size at the secondary position because no disrespect to all the guys that are here, these midget corners can't cut it. Now, I've also heard Falcon fans saying, oh, we need to get A.J. Terrell's brother and match him up. No, the hell we don't. Right now, you have a chance to draft A.J. Terrell's brother still in college. Let it go. I get that y'all want to bring these hometown kids here. But at the same time, I'm looking at trying to bring thorough cornerbacks in that can definitely help us. You got Kobe Bryant out there still, who's a technician, and you talk about good speed for a corner and good size for a corner. That is a guy that I'm also looking at. Sebastian Castro didn't have the fastest 40. However, you're talking about a guy that is a technician, a guy that is going to get downhill, he's going to tackle, and he's very good when he comes to playing the ball. And he showed that. Anything that you get out of the University of Iowa, you see what happened with Cooper DeJean. That was a guy I said we should have drafted last year, but had a good year last year. Let's see what he's going to do this year. But the one thing, ladies and gentlemen, is if you get anything out of a Kirk Ferentz system out of Iowa, best believe that they're going to be disciplined and they're going to be NFL ready when it comes to being able to play defense. Kirk Ferentz is one of the smartest defensive minds out here. Unfortunately, he can't get it together for the offense for his team. And I hate to say it, but hey, Iowa's pretty much an old school team. Hard-nosed defense and a strong running game. You don't see much coming out in the passing game except for the tight ends because they use them very well. And you look at Iowa being a tight end university from George Kittle, Dallas Clark. I mean, so many others that we could name right now. Luke Lachey is going to be the next one to come out of there. And here's my thing. The other talks is Kyle Pitts is going to is not protected in the trade situation, just like Gray. But I will say this. if you do get rid of Pitts, you've got to replace him with a tight end that's going to give you some production, not only just in the pass catching game, but also in the blocking game. And Luke Lachey is a guy that I would look for in that if you don't get him or Harold Fannin out of Bowling Green. Those are two guys that you can replace them with. Now, if you choose not to replace that gentleman, the best thing you can do now is just go straight defense, because that's been a cry for help since day one. Arthur Smith definitely did not take care of that situation because he was only concerned about the offense. And many Falcon fans, honestly, are concerned about the offense right now. The other guy that I would look at would be grabbing. That was going to be my next one. What's going on, Carlito? I would say Arroyo out of Miami. That is another guy that you would look at that tight end spot if you do. Now, this is if you trade Pitts to get picks or you trade them for money. I don't think that they're going to do that, but hey, it's anybody right now is on the chopping block. They want to try to keep Grady here, but my thing is, at this point, you got to let him walk. I know that sucks. We all love us some Grady Jarrett, but you got to free up some money. You've got to make a splash, and you've got to bring in better talent. Stop holding on to these guys. This is the reason why championships elude the city of Atlanta when it comes to their football teams. I'm not going to speak on any of the other sports because, again, I'm an Atlanta sports fan. I'm a Georgia Bulldog, so it's just one of those things. You grow up looking at how management is. Stop trying to make these guys Falcons for life. Listen, keep these guys as Falcons while their production is high. Get rid of them when it's time to get rid of them, and bring in talent and keep the damn thing moving. That is how you have to do it. It's just like life. You're not gonna work a job to the day that you die. Eventually, they gotta replace you, and sometimes you get let go in the middle of your prime. In this business, in the NFL, the thing is production. You've got to let guys go and bring in guys that are going to be in their prime. People hold on to things. How can I put it? The best way to describe this situation is the Falcons hold on pretty much a little too long when it comes to players. We always do. We trade them a year or two too late. It never fails. And the one thing that we've got to start doing and being better at is putting ourselves in position to where fans, you got to understand, you love players, love them while they're here, but they got to go. Don't fall in love with players, fall in love with the logo. It's always logo business, folks. And the question is, are we going to become a team that can be about logo business, or are we still going to be in a situation to where we just sit back, moan and groan, and cry about, oh, well, why we got to let this guy go? Da, 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 da. Hey, do you want to win, or do you want to keep holding on to things that don't need to be around? That's my question. And most fans try to say, well, we can win with these guys that we have. We have this. If we could win with the guys that we have, let's be honest, folks, we would already have a championship. If you believe in this team that was on the field last year or the year before that and the year before that, we wouldn't be under 500 as we were, or just have a one game improvement like last year. We wouldn't be in that spot, honestly. Most people that are a part of the red and black fan base, myself and many others, but the difference is I can handle truth. A lot of Falcon fans don't want to handle truth. There's a lot of people that are saying you're hating, but here's the thing: how can you hate when you have 60 some odd years of losing and you're repeating bad habits? Ownership might be there were only two owners in this thing, two owners. But when you look at the regime of general managers and things that we've had, let's be honest. The most successful general manager that we've had in our history is Thomas Dimitroff. As much trash and as much foolishness as we give him, I wanted to say something else, but I got to keep it PG this morning. But as much foolishness as we give him, let's be honest. The most successful era that we had was under Dimitrov and Scott Pioli. No one wants to talk about that, though. No one wants to have that conversation. It's the truth. It sucks to say it, but hey, when you have consistent playoff wins, you have a quarterback that the fan base is split on. You have some that love him, some that hate him. But for 14 years, Matt Ryan was consistent and he won an MVP. None of our other quarterbacks did it. None of our other quarterbacks had 8 straight years of winning. So when you really sit back and you look at that, you look at to see he hit on Julio Jones. They hit on Julio Jones. They hit on Roddy White. They hit on so many other players that have come through. I would say the new regime that we have, let's be honest, it's been hit or miss. It has been hit or miss. Just think about it, folks. Most folks don't want to have that conversation, but until you can be honest with yourself and you can be honest about the state of the Falcons, it's going to be delusional. So let's let the chips fall where they may. Let's see how this draft is going to turn out, because we're in a position right now to bring in some players that can make a difference, which we should have already done before when we had money and we were able to get draft picks. However, the general manager and the ownership, I'm not even going to just throw Terry under the bus. Arthur Blank, Rich McKay, now I'm going to throw Terry in there with that, as well as Arthur Smith during the time he was here, and also Raheem Morris. This regime has gone down a route of getting players in here that can play, but they're not game changers. We got to see that. I have to withhold my judgment on Trice because Trice didn't play this year. Trice had a knee injury, but we will see what that looks like when he ends up getting his opportunity this season to play. Brandon Durless didn't crack the starting lineup. I mean, they're saying that we're expecting big things from this guy, but let's be real. He didn't even crack the lineup last year. He got a couple of spot plays here and there, but with the depleted defensive line, where we were getting gashed a lot, we figured it out when Jerry Gray and Raheem Morris was working in cahoots together to call a defense. We were starting to get pressure. I get it. Zach Harrison started to come around. Arnold Ebiketie kind of started to figure it out. But at the same time, let's be real. You got a young guy that's here that's supposed to be he was a top player in the country, but hey, college is totally different than the NFL. The question is, can he adapt? This year, he has a chance to do that. You've been in the system for a year. You understand the defense. You've got to understand your assignments. So until you can do that, we're going to be sitting around saying woulda, coulda, shoulda. So he's got an opportunity this year. But again, my advice to the Atlanta Falcons, I know my word isn't really going to go too far, but hey, who knows? Somebody might from the front office might be listening on the way to the office. You never know. From a professional standpoint, you've got to start making moves and bringing in young men who can be game changers for you. You have to understand, a lot of these young men do things that might not align with the values. I understand that you want a high character guy. I get it. But sometimes there are gentlemen that make mistakes in life. Sometimes you got to give kids a second chance. I'm living proof of that. I am living proof of that because I've been given a second chance. I'm not going to dive into it, and I know many who have. And you have to understand there's a such thing as called growth and maturity. You can't expect people to grow and become better if you don't give them chances. If you don't give them chances. And at this point, you got to stop trying to draft these damn church boys, which a lot of them are, and start bringing in some of these young men who can damn play. If they have something, you talk to them, but you give them an opportunity. Stop shunning these guys out, because you apparently see that one of the players that you shunned out has got a Super Bowl trophy right now in Philadelphia. I ain't got to talk too much about it because it's a win-win. Bijan is definitely a great player. He's definitely been an impact player on his offense, but let's be real. Running backs don't last long in the NFL. So for everybody that's saying, "Oh, you bringing up that argument," hey, a running back's lifespan in the NFL is pretty much 3 to 5 years. And really, if they get to five, they're lucky. But if you get past that, you're fortunate. But the way that the game is played now, they're used as spot players and guys that are really not bell cows anymore. So at this point, the running back position is going to be re-emphasized because it's a ton of them out there. But the question is, how are they going to be used? That's my question. How are they going to be used? Are they going to be used full time or are they going to be used part time? Depends on the system. Depends on what you do with them. However, you do have to address the elephant in the room, as I said before. Don't shy away from gentlemen. Now, if it's something that's very, very egregious, I get it. But if you got a guy with a DUI or speeding ticket or this here, that's one thing. Now, one thing I'm not going to advocate is if the guy has a domestic violence charge, that's a whole different story. I'm not willing to win. I don't promote that type of foolishness. But if that's a guy that I would pass on because that's a risky gamble if you're taking that chance. But if you have a guy that might have gotten a fight here and there, or something happened to where he didn't do prison time, he did what he needed to do, he handled himself, give the kid a chance. Stop allowing talent to just walk on by. No, I'm not a Mike. No, I'm not a Green fan. I'm not a Mike. What is it? Green, the kid out of Marshall. No, I'm not a fan, and I'm not a fan. Just gonna be honest. He doesn't move me. But if he comes here, I'm fine with it. But I'm gonna use him as an example. He had issues with some things, and which got him removed from one school that ended him up at Marshall. Now, here's my thing. If you choose to talk to this kid, if you choose to bring him in, I think you'd be turning a new leaf when you have a gentleman that can play the game at a high level and pretty much might have a questionable past or he's had something that he's done. You've got to give kids an opportunity. It's only two things you wake up with: a chance and a choice. You have a chance to bring in some talent. You have a choice to pass up on it like you've been doing for years and allowing Atlanta just to watch division rivals, teams that are winning championships, to continue to collect talent and give these young men chances. So, Arthur Blank, I challenge you with my final thing today: bring in players that actually can make an impact. And if they have a little bit of a sketch on their past or whatnot, give them a chance to actually show that they can grow up and they can mature. Because at one point in your life, you were a young man. You did foolish things. I can tell you from being a former military member as well. There are many young men that are 18, 19, 20, 21. Let's be real. A lot of guys don't even damn mature in the service until they're close to their 30s. Let's be real. Now, some guys got to grow up fast, but you're talking about guys that are in charge of millions of dollars worth of equipment, lives are at stake, and so many other things. And you have guys that get in trouble and do things that get swept under the rug, or they get punished internally for it, and then they grow up. That's called mature. That's called helping a young man mature. And if you're willing to be the philanthropist that you are, you're going to give guys a chance to do that. Get over the situation with Michael Vick. Stop worrying about the fact that he messed up, because guess what? It's been over 20 years. Let it go. Let it go. Don't hurt the next young man that could actually be positive for you and actually bring in positivity to this franchise, a winning attitude, showing that you can turn a new leaf. So, with that being said, folks, definitely appreciate you guys for tuning in. For those that are going through some things right now, just know prayers are out there. A lot of things are happening in this world right now that have us scratching our heads. But guess what? I don't know who you pray to. I don't know who your God is. I get it. I'm not going to throw religion. But again, say a little prayer. Just trust and believe that troubled times don't last always. tough people do. And hopefully the Falcons can be tough enough to last these troubled times. This is your boy, the Historian. I'm out. Ghost.